Showing here. I'm back, folks. It's Friday. It is December, 2 weeks from the day after Christmas, which I will be celebrating not on Christmas, the day after, here with all of you. It is a beautiful day outside. It is cold and windy as it is very nice to look at. And I am back. I did not watch the Game Awards because I have better things to do with my time, like not watch the Gaming Awards. It's a fraud. It's a joke. And really, folks, it's getting to a point now where I'm getting too old and I have no patience or tolerance for anything anymore. I despise the United States. I despise this fucking disgusting ass debauched society. The more I hear about what's really going on with all of these popular people and channels on YouTube and how they never earned a dime in their lives and they keep using their forums to create more revenue for themselves, more popularity they didn't deserve or earn, because of the fact they have no talent, they have no intelligence. They'll admit they didn't go to school. And even if they did, they've dumbed down the standards so much now that all you need to do is not go to the hospital and get your stomach pumped from all the alcohol and drugs you take while you're trying to get laid, and you get a degree. So that's where we are in the United States. It's getting worse every day. The world knows it. The world has found this place to be a fucking scam and a joke, which it is. And sooner or later, I'm just not going to be able to deal with it. And I'm going to come out and say what I need to say. The only problem is I have to work for a corporation. So I have to watch what I say. And there are people that would utilize what I'm identified as in the United States, especially the fact that I am powerfully heterosexual and Catholic, devout Catholic, legit devout Catholic. I would definitely be slaughtered if I ever got more popular than a few people watching me here and there. So I have to be careful for the most part because this free country doesn't let you speak reality. But when it comes to the Gaming Awards, now, let me just put it to you like this. There is a world and there is the United States-based internet. The United States-based internet would lead you to believe there is a vote that means something. There are two sides. Everybody's successful. We're all having a grand old time. And it's just the matter of whether or not you're right or left. No, this place is debauched. It's dilapidated. It was never any good. It will never be any good. It is always going to be the world's personal scam bot. That's what the United States is. And when it comes to the awards, this is more evidence because the debate here in the United States is that video games are art. They're not there to entertain. And the people that make the games, they're not trying to put more money in their pockets on profits, even though in one statement, you'll talk about how it's art or it's an artist or whatever the hell. And then in the next one, you'll mention how much revenue it made. Art is not about making money. Art is about changing culture and moving society. Video games have never been made for that. However, the story from the internet and all of these rich cunts that do nothing but waste people's lives and time, they will insist that what has to be a video game is a movie with likable people. It's all it takes. It's not about having a plot. It's not about sustaining that plot using metaphors and assimilations that are very well thought out. It's not about seeing anything deeper in society, especially this one, than, yeah, but they're cool and I'd hang out with them and I'm a nerd or a geek, whatever. I say geek because nerd means that you have to elicit some form of intelligence, and these people clearly don't have that. But the whole thing is that it's self-serving. That's what it comes down to. It's self-serving. And now, right or left, the problem is that it's not that the United States keeps harping on this lazy attempt at making movies or this lazy game design where it's just people crying and brooding and being miserable. And when you have gameplay, it's a third-person shooter or it's Souls-like or it's a little bit of both. Like, I don't know, Stellar Blade or something along those lines. The problem isn't that. The problem is AAA gaming has lost its soul. It's not trying to make art anymore. It's trying to just make money off people. They don't understand. So when you have something like an independent game, like say Baldur's Gate 3, which listen, I was watching a full walkthrough. I was watching a couple of full walkthroughs. I was watching speed runs. Looks like a pretty fun game. A little long, but looks like a pretty fun game. Is it game of the year? Is it better than Xenoblade Chronicles 3? Is it better than Shin Megami Tensei 5's original version? Is it better than whatever other games Nintendo might have produced either before or after that never even got remotely considered? What's the worst game that Nintendo produced in the last few years? Probably Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. I'm not saying they're bad games. They're just not really all that enjoyable. They're slow. They're quiet. You break weapons constantly. And yet that was up for Game of the Year. So now with this one, because we still have to harp on the idea that realistic people in ugly settings with occasionally nice-looking ones in dilapidated monstrosities that you are scripted to fight in certain areas, that some form of combat here and a storyline where likable people are working together or some shit, whatever it is, equates to, especially if it's more than 15 hours, equates to Game of the Year. And now, because it's an independent, or so they claim, and because it's not from the United States, well, then it has to be great. Now, I've been watching speedruns of Expedition 33 Clair Obscur, which won Game of the Year, or Clair Obscur Expedition, whatever the fuck it's called. And I can say this, it's French, so there are some attractive women in it, whether it's the young lady that has the red hair and dresses like she's about to pilot the gondola, or it's the woman that just walks around barefoot for whatever reason. She's just flying around barefoot. I don't know why. And she seems to have very, I would say, prestigious colonial dress. Not a dress, but, like a suit of some kind. But whatever the reasons, I guess these characters are likable, what have you. It more or less has you go around this world and fight giant creatures using a parry system not unlike Dark Souls. And although I wouldn't say that with how pretentious Game Awards journalists and voters are, to think that Donkey Kong Bonanza would win, it won Family-Friendly Game of the Year, or Best Family-Friendly Game, which is more or less saying to Nintendo, yeah, we still think you're just for kids. Donkey Kong Bonanza is not just for kids, okay? A family-friendly game or a family game or whatever you want to call it would be something like Hello Kitty or some shit, okay? This game right here is challenging. It makes you use mechanics you might have forgotten about throughout the course of the game. It makes you use more mechanics than just hit circles. Right, we're done right there. It's okay, boom. Now you've pretty much won the fight. Just to hold your hand and get to the next part of the storyline, it gives you things to do in the game that are infectiously fun. Now, because of this title, I wouldn't say that Donkey Kong Bonanza was the best game that Nintendo or any company released this year, because Metroid Prime 4 is fucking incredible. It's absolutely incredible. It's everything that makes Metroid Prime, which, by the way, the original one was practically given a perfect score on Metacritic. The second one was given a pretty high score too. The third one was given a very high score as well. This one's better than the three of them, and it got... The reason is, folks, not because these people know anything about video games, because they don't, because if they did, they wouldn't have had Clair Obscur Expedition, whatever, a port on the Switch 2 sometime in the future. That would have never won. Donkey Kong Bonanza would have won, because as a video game, whether these anti-Nintendo assholes or anyone that sees that the Nintendo hate is still popular enough from vidIQ or TubeBuddy that you need to keep talking about it to shill out more and more views in your favor. Ultimately, what it comes down to is, as a video game, which means something that's fun to play, that challenges you, challenges your instincts, makes you react quick and stuff. Donkey Kong Bonanza, from what I've played, from what I've seen, from what I'm replaying, is far superior to Clair Obscur. Now, why would people not accept that idea? Well, because it's a cartoon against a movie. It's fake anime like characters against real looking people. It's overtly colorful backdrops as opposed to real grimy and realistic ones. What does that have to say with the gameplay? Now, considering, just to show you how much of a farce this group is, considering that they gave Game of the Year a couple of years ago to Astrobot, which is Sony's Japanese company that steals from everybody, stealing from 3D Mario games. That's just a fact. You don't have to admit it. You can complain and cry or laugh and guffaw about how Nintendo fanboy, but it's a fact. There is a video. No, there are at least two on YouTube that just show you how every single animation, every mechanic, every element involving Astrobot is directly ripped from Mario 3D games or even just Nintendo 3D platformers and everything. It's so obvious. It's pathetic. So they copy Nintendo games with a cartoonish character and colorful graphics, but then Nintendo gives you a real, unique, interesting, different spin on a platformer, which is not just a platform, it's a completely different mechanical game. And yeah, it was up there, but it lost out to another ugly ass, long, slow, here's some simplistic combat that can easily be exploited because we got to get you to the next storyline. Now, I would not lie and say that the French version of a Sony exclusive ripoff is a lot better than any of the Sony exclusives you would get of the same ilk. But it doesn't make it better as a game than Donkey Kong Bonanza, which I will admit, the plot is just about working together, friendship, all that stuff. That's what I say about most anime-based games or anime series. Typically, when it's Japan, it's Huey Lewis and the News. That's the power of. That's the whole plot every time. But at the same time, what is the story of a video game, folks? Let's do this again, children. What is the story? What have you studied? What did you learn? Time for the quiz for anyone that watches after the fact, because nobody watches while I'm doing this, really. What did we learn from our experience together? The story of the video game needs one purpose. Why am I doing what I'm doing? That's all it needs to be. It doesn't need to be anything deeper. It doesn't need to be anything more surreal or anything more invasive. It just needs to be, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why is my character this character? And why am I doing what I'm doing? That's all it needs to be. It's a video game, okay? Stop trying to make it art. It's like playing Overwatch 2 and everybody's trying to make every unit into a damage unit. No. Stop doing that. It's to be played and enjoyed. It's not to be watched and move you. Not like United States-based cinema is that anyway. That's all entertainment. That's all based on, well, who are they going to have directing? Who are they going to have writing? Who's going to star in it? And what's the title? Oh, the title is, whatever. Oh, I got to go see that. Hey, that movie was whatever. And typically, if it's not Marvel Cinematic Universe movies or it's not probably Nintendo movies, it's going to suck fucking balls because everything in the United States sucks fucking balls. They just had the announcement of the Supergirl trailer. I saw it. It's fucking ridiculous. It's pathetic. It's another shameless attempt to, because, as you got to remember, movies are not made in days. They take years. They take years to plan out. I guess to write, because the days of yore where Hollywood would just take screenplays that were sitting on the shelf and add them together to make one or two or whatever amount of movies. Now it's kind of like they just make them up as they go along. So they write them, they put them together, they get the trailers, all that stuff. They do the post production and everything like that. It takes a good year or two, maybe 3, depending on how intricate the special effects will be to get a movie going. So whatever seems to be hot when the movies are being put together may not be the case when they're being released. In this scenario, James Gunn and his ilk, everybody that he has DC and Warner Brothers hire to make these shitty movies, they're not movies, to make these shitty collages for people with the mentality of 5-year-olds. Everything they do is just based off of, hey, the word fuck and people getting eviscerated, or the PG-13 where the word shit and people getting blasted with lasers and no discernible blood per se. Yeah, that's a lot of fun, especially when we're just cracking wise and having dance numbers and whatever. Like, yeah, that's going to work. So let's just keep doing that over and over again. And they introduced this character as being another, because this is what the United States thinks women are, another drunken pig, slut of a woman that has to go flying around looking for another sexual conquest because she's so fragile and so hurt and so scarred by the destruction of planet Krypton. Now, whatever it is that these pretentious rich assholes that get into the comic book industry, whatever it is that they're trying to turn comic books into, the concept, the original concept of comic books was to give children new gods and goddesses to pray to. Well, maybe not pray to, but aspire to be. The idea was to make them colorful and make them family friendly, overall kid friendly. And if they were a little bit of cheese, a little bit of goof, whatever, just as long as children could enjoy them. And that's why people thought that comic books were what you would call today brain rot. And that's what they are. Now, once the 80s and 90s started to hit, then every villain needed a backstory because we're all Star Wars fans, even though Darth Vader was not a villain. He was a tragic hero, but whatever. Details for another time. And they try to make them all serious, and they try to make them, swaddled in reality and everything like that. And it's fucking comic books, bro, okay? So I'm sure that somewhere down the road, because all of these people that rule the United States and make these things, they're all men, and every now and then they'll hire women that they find to be not attractive and somewhat like-minded so that they don't get accused of sexual harassment or assault, which they do anyway, just to make it seem as if we've hit our quota. We got like 20 women in our group now out of 300 people, and they have blue hair or green or whatever like us. They got tattoos on their necks. They're fat and unattractive, and they have really progressive ideas. So they fit right in. And I'm sure that somewhere down the line, somewhere in the last 30 years, whatever, they decided to take a character that was nothing more than a wholesome young woman who wore a little skirt and saved the day and made her into what the United States thinks every woman is: a debauched, disheveled, walking embarrassment of the female gender. So they have another one where here is this woman that's supposed to be beyond human, right? So it's okay for this society to see a 6'4", 6'5" Superman with chiseled jawbone and all jacked up and shit, but the woman has to have small tits. But if she has big ones, she has to get them pushed in to the point where she can barely breathe, because God forbid, because tits are offensive in the United States. She has to have a boy's body because curves are offensive in the United States, unless it's a fat chick or a somewhat regular, everyday young woman that thinks she's the hottest thing in the world. I'm not naming any names because, again, try not to get in trouble. But she has no figure. She wears like body armor to hide her femininity even more so. And she has to look like a young man, teenage young man, just that he's not ready to shave yet. So whether or not the woman that's playing her is attractive, they don't let her look attractive because God forbid. And she just shows up in the Superman movie to show that he's the whole, because again, all these people, women taking over, women are taking over, because the United States is misogynistic and they want you to think that Oh, you got a problem with inclusion? Everything? Well, that's women's fault. Ever since they started letting these infernal ninnies, these detriments to society, these people, these individuals who are only there to birth the babies that us men shoot into them, because of the fact that they started voting with their wild ideas of, equality and shit, now we got to do all this. So they always make women look worse and worse and worse, and they make men look better. And then you have these fucking morons who keep acting as if they're critics that say the opposite. Oh, the man looks helpless. The man looks... Okay, why is it that the man is always the one that is loyal? He's always the one that is willing to do save her, and she's just a fucking useless pile of shit that either punches a guy in the face or goes running off crying. She's screwing everybody in sight. Why is that? You ever see a woman in any of these comic book movies or movies in general that's a virgin? Or would do anything for a man, just one man that treats her well? You ever see that? Nah. Because why? The United States wants women to look like shit. That's all it is. So now we have this woman, if you can call her that, and the whole thing is, once more, she's just the Guardians of the Galaxy wrapped up in one little package. And even though she's wearing a skirt, barely see her legs. But whether or not the comics, and I'm sure some of these comic geeks will insist there was a series where this, that, and the other thing, because as I mentioned, rich guys try to make themselves into artists. They try to make their stupid ass comics that no one's buying into the most legendary form of interpretation and expression, everything like that. The fucking drawings in recent comics look like children are doing them, but art, right? And they try to act as if, well, if she were 16 and she watched or had to live through the destruction of her planet, well, she would be like every other human on the planet, warped by... Well, they're not supposed to be humans from the planet Earth, are they? They're supposed to be super, aren't they? So maybe instead of just writing other people that you would hang out with during your fucking fraternity or sorority-based orgies in the 3 or 4 years you spent in college having a party the whole time, maybe instead of trying to relate everyone to them, maybe you should take the responsibility of being a so-called artist and do something else. And not have a series that James Gunn and his Cliff Notes reading assholes from Warner Brothers and DC that have never made a good comic book movie, especially not when it comes to what they're trying to represent in the films. Maybe instead of doing what they've done, which is, hey, big reference, hey, Easter eggs, hey, look, see, we know the comic. Why don't you make a fucking Supergirl movie that's about her? What she was supposed to be about, right? Wholesomeness, innocence, somebody that a woman can aspire to be, especially in a day and age where any of those words are shunned upon because, well, that's just not what we're about here in the United States. We're about being absolute fucking whores in every way. And we're there to make women feel like they're inadequate. Been happening since the 70s and 80s. You're inadequate if you're still without cock in your vagina by age 14, 15, even though we're totally against pedophilia. We'll make movies where 15 and 16-year-olds are trying to get laid. We'll make movies where 16-year-olds, which are supposed to be PG-13 and safe for anyone over the age of 13, will make movies that pin women against the wall, figuratively, saying, well, you're a 16-year-old has that sex, you're a tease. And we'll popularize this concept and mentality. So then, you have a fucking Supergirl movie where she's just a fucking drunken louse. Fantastic. Love this society. And God forbid she's stunning. Well, then that's offensive. Can't have that. That also leads me to another topic of conversation because, we can't talk about the Game Awards without mentioning snub. Now, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond could not have been in this year's awards. It came out way too late. I get it. But once again, a gorgeous woman is being said to, by some people, is being said to not be a gorgeous woman naturally. I'm not going to get into the details on that. But this is the kind of stupidity that rises on the internet. Let me say something so outrageous, and then the reaction, I can blame everybody else for reacting in the way that they react. Look, you do you, you be you, but you belittle what Nintendo did in 1987. In 1980 fucking 7. Not 2 years ago, not 5 years ago, not so that guys can jerk off or whatever, just because they were inspired by Alien and Aliens. They decided to make, pretty much at the 11th hour before releasing Metroid, the original one, they decided to make the character a woman. And then as the games evolved in the series, they made her quite a woman. To the point where in Metroid Other M, which was a, I don't want to say very underappreciated, but somewhat underappreciated game. It was fun to play. I get the problems with your cutscenes and whatever. I get what you're saying. She says the baby too much. Well, do you want a natural woman that would naturally have a biological need to be a mother at some point in her life? Or do you want a woman that's just, your beloved Captain Marvel, who you keep bringing up as though that movie, which was a good movie and made over $1 billion, was somehow the apex of absolute Me Too, feminism, we despise men, all that bullshit. But would you rather that? Like, what do you want? Now, I get it. She said she was talking a lot, but whatever the case, in that game, they made her into a Japanese porno star. Even with the beauty mark on her cheek and everything. She was pretty much Hitomi Tanaka. She had like double D cups, 38 double D. She had wide hips, and God, she was nice to look at. But be that as it may, those that want to influence want to make it seem as if she may not have been, and that there's a fan theory where she is not really a natural born woman. Whatever gets you off, man, all right? I don't care. I am the horniest motherfucker that ever walked the face of this earth. Nobody can be hornier than me. It's impossible. Not unless you're locked up in a sanitarium because you are sexualizing everything. You cannot be hornier than me. And I have never, and I will never, ever go to town on myself because of a video game. It won't happen. It won't happen. I'll react because I love looking at beautiful women, whether they're real or they're video games or cartoons, or whatever. But I have never started ravaging the private area over a video game woman or a cartoon woman. It's not going to happen because I have these things called standards. It's not a matter of guys wanting to get off. It's just, why can't we have some eye candy? There's a debate now going on about another new Tomb Raider and another new show or movie where Lara Croft has a new reimagining. She was never anything more than a piece of ass with an English accent and a whole lot of money. That's all she ever was. That's all she ever has to be. They're video games. They're fantasies. They're not real, right? So why are you trying to bog them down in realism and then not go the full length? So when she's a college graduate with 2 earrings in her ear, because God forbid she's, wholesome in any way, she can wipe out armies of mercenaries without a problem, with a bow and arrow that she made herself. No problems. Get her head beaten up against the rocks, even when she survives. No issues. But we want to bog it down to realism. Mixed messages, maybe? But anyway, when it comes to the awards, there were a couple of announcements that I kind of wanted to bring up. One was that Larian Studios is back at it. They're going to release Divinity. There have not been any announcements as to when or what consoles. At this point, there is a rumor that Baldur's Gate 3 is coming to the Switch 2 one of these days because Divinity Original Sin 2 came out in the Switch 1 with all the DLC, even though the Switch 1 wasn't supposed to be capable of handling all that. Did a very good job, and the Switch 2 does an even better job. So there is a possibility that Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be released on it. When it comes down to these new titles, with everything happening following the Switch 1's success and the possibility with the Switch 2 breaking records left and right, that it could be another one of the highest selling consoles of all time. With all that being said, you kind of have to look at these it depends on what companies. Like, for instance, the new Mega Man that was announced, it's going to be on Nintendo. It's going to be on the Switch too. It might even be on the Switch 1 as well because it's Capcom and because it's Capcom. That's all you need to know. But with something like Divinity, there is a possibility that now, with everybody more or less getting their developer kits and everything, that these games are going to be made for the Switch 2, either on release or a little bit after. At this point, a little bit after may not be completely factual or necessary. May not be. Because as more people get acclimated and the need to produce for the Switch 2 with its popularity and everything grows, they most likely will be developing these games for the Switch 2 specifically. Now, if you develop a game for Microsoft's, Xbox, whatever, you're a fucking idiot. Because why? No one's buying them. Microsoft is pretty much bowed out of the console race, despite the fact that they're announcing another one. They have PC. Make it for PC. It's virtually the same fucking thing. But stop wasting your time on Xbox. No one's buying it. It was also announced recently that the Switch 2 has sold over 3 million consoles in Japan alone. The Switch 2 is going to sell at least 40 million consoles in Japan alone within the next few years. It's Nintendo, it's Japan. It's gonna happen. So it's just interesting to see where we're going. But the one thing that I wanted to talk about was this awards bullshit, because I'm tired of the concept that the only thing wrong with the gaming industry is that it's AAA gaming that lost its soul, lost its way, whatever. No, you have lots of problems. And if you try to emulate these Sony Western-based West Coast movie games, you're the problem. You need to get over this one. So I'm going to get out of here. I will see you all next week. Till then.